I, 35-year-old female, and my husband, 35-year-old male, have 2 little boys, and our oldest is just now getting into Santa and the magic of Christmas, which is also my favorite time of year. Last year we had a newborn and a 1-year-old, and I felt bad that my mother-in-law, 70-year-old female, was alone, divorced, grown kids, we are the only ones in town, and invited her to come over for Christmas Eve and stay the night to experience the magic with our kids. Little did I know that this gesture would turn into her taking over making cookies with our oldest, inserting herself to watch movies with him and play games without me and my husband. While it was sweet, the worst part was that she decided she was Santa without mentioning it to us until the kids went to bed and put out all these toys for both of them, and was shocked when I said, "Well, we have gifts from Santa too we want to put out." Essentially, she took over the role of parent, and it crushed me. Yes, my kids were too little to understand, but she made sure she was in every video photo, helping them with every present. Her behavior was over the top and made me feel like she was trying to be the mother. She has done this in other areas of our lives, but we have let it go because she is alone, and we want to have a relationship with our kids because my husband and I never knew our grandparents. This year, we are celebrating Christmas at her house. Literally, all day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. will be spent at her house. So I said this year it will just be the 4 of us at our house alone on Christmas Eve and Christmas morning. Then we will go to her house. She was livid and proceeded to say in front of our kids that she will go tell Santa that he can go to her house too. I said no, Santa only comes here because this is where the kids live. And she stormed off. I tried to clarify with her that she is welcome to give the kids what she wants, but they are gifts from Grandma, not Santa. While my husband backed me in the moment, it didn't feel like enough. He just repeated what I said and made it seem like it was my choice, which is fine, and I can hold the line, but it was frustrating. When I spoke to him about it, he defended her, saying that she just wants to be with family and join in the magic of Santa, which I said I want her to be a part of this. But she is taking over my role as a mother and my magic. She already did this with her 3 kids. I'm the mom, it's my turn. I stood my ground and said we will be with her all day. I'm just asking for us to spend the night together as our family of 4 and an hour or 2 in the morning to do Santa together. He then threw out why I was making it such a big deal because he hates the idea of doing the Santa and lying to the kids. Am I the jerk for not letting my mother-in-law join us for our Christmas Santa? Edit. Thank you for all your comments. This is my first post, so I didn't want it to be too long. There seemed to be some questions on her involvement last year, and I may have downplayed it. By saying she took over, she literally took over. While yes, we wanted family around and for all to enjoy the holidays, she was overbearing and overwhelming. She kicked us out of the kitchen, saying it was her tradition to make cookies. My husband never did cookies with her. She fought with my husband over the movie to watch because she didn't want to watch a kids' movie while my son wanted to watch an animated one. So, she sat him on her lap and proceeded to talk to him about watching her movie. And then she ridiculed us for letting him eat cookies with her, saying that it was too much sugar. On Christmas morning, she actually pouted and got mad at my 2-year-old for not playing with the toys she got him as Santa, and almost told him she was Santa. To top it off, she then lectured me on having my boys too close in age because she did the same thing and I was going to be miserable. These are half the stories that happened. It was not enjoyable or a happy little celebration. It was miserable. I'm not trying to take any magic away from her. I just want our own time together and not have her be in every little thing. Honestly, I don't care if Santa goes to her house, but because her reactions are that she is Santa, not us, and trying to step in because my husband isn't so keen on it, that's where I want to draw the line. She's one that, if you give her an inch, she will take a mile. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the jerk. Your kids aren't her do-overs. She is grandma, not mother. She can experience the magic without excluding you from all of the holiday activities. Did she at least clean up after herself, or was that left to you to deal with? Mine's famous for this move. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law had her Christmas with her children. It's your turn now. I don't understand why some MILs are so selfish. You being there all day on Christmas is already being too giving. You're better than me, that's for sure. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a week since I last posted about the Santa situation with my mother-in-law, and oh boy, do I have an update for you all. So after the initial blow-up, things seemed to calm down a bit. My husband and I had a long talk, and he finally understood where I was coming from. He agreed that we needed to set boundaries with his mom. We decided to stick to our plan of having Christmas morning at our house, just the four of us, before heading over to her place. But then, 2 days before Christmas, my mother-in-law called. She was crying, saying she felt excluded, and that all she wanted was to make Christmas special for her grandkids. My husband, bless his heart, is a sucker for tears. He suggested maybe we could compromise and let her come over early Christmas morning, after we'd done our Santa bit. I was hesitant, but I didn't want to be the bad guy, so I agreed. Christmas Eve came, and we had a lovely time with the boys. They were so excited for Santa, and it was truly magical to watch their faces light up. We put out cookies and milk and tucked them into bed with stories of reindeer and elves. The next morning, we were up at the crack of dawn, and the boys were ecstatic with their gifts from Santa. We had just settled down with hot chocolate when there was a knock at the door. It was my mother-in-law, an hour earlier than we'd agreed. She came in with this huge sack of presents, insisting they were from Santa, who had made a special stop at her house because she was feeling lonely. I was floored. My husband was caught off guard too, but he didn't say anything. The boys, of course, were thrilled with more gifts, but I could feel that familiar frustration boiling up inside me. She had once again overstepped, and this time it was in our own home. The rest of the day was a blur. We went to her house as planned, and she had gone all out. The place was like a winter wonderland, and she had even hired someone to dress up as Santa. The kids were having the time of their lives, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being sidelined in my own family. Then, in the midst of the festivities, my mother-in-law pulled me aside. She apologized for coming over early and for bringing more Santa gifts. She said she realized she had been trying to relive her days as a mother, and that it wasn't fair to me. I was taken aback by her self-awareness, and a part of me felt for her. She was just trying to find her place in our family dynamic. We had a heart-to-heart, and I told her I appreciated her efforts, but that it was important for my husband and me to create our own traditions with our boys. She nodded, and I could see the sadness in her eyes. It was a bittersweet moment, realizing that while she had overstepped, her intentions were rooted in love and a desire to be close to us. The day ended with my mother-in-law giving the boys one last gift each, this time clearly labeled from Grandma. The boys hugged her, and I could see the joy it brought her. It was a reminder that family is complicated, and while boundaries are necessary, so is compassion. As we drove home, the boys asleep in the back seat clutching their new toys, my husband took my hand. He squeezed it and said, "We'll figure this out together." And I believed him. Now, for the next story. My brother has 6 kids. 4 of them are from his first marriage to Jane. Jane passed away when their kids were 7, 6, 4, and 2. Within months of Jane's passing, my brother married Dawn. There was no affair. My brother threw himself into finding another wife and mom for the kids right after Jane's funeral, and Dawn was the second person he met who he considered. The first things went sour after 2 dates. Dawn was in a difficult place when she met my brother. She was out of a marriage after struggling to have kids and was facing the fact that she would never be a mother. My brother having 4 young children who lost their mother was an ideal thing for her, and she said as much to me back in the day. Later, they did have 2 children together. So the relationship my 4 older nieces and nephews have with Dawn is very different. The oldest 2 are not super fond of her and do not look at her as their mother. But the middle 2 children do. All they know is Dawn as their mom, and they adore her. They do not understand their older siblings prioritizing Jane's memory over Dawn. It has been argued over many times. Dawn is also legally the mom of the middle 2 now because she adopted them. The oldest 2 are now older, both in college, while the middle and younger kids are still at home. The middle 2 kids have been on their older siblings' cases a lot about treating Dawn like their mom because she's here and has been their mom longer than Jane was. The older 2 told them they don't care about Dawn. The middle 2 kids told them they'll be left out more over time if they keep it up, and to remember how they often excluded themselves from stuff and how left out they must have felt. The older 2 told them they never felt left out in a negative way. They never wanted to be included in Mother's Day portraits with Dawn or to be part of her family traditions. Last week, I had the middle kids. They told me they wanted to do something special for Dawn for Christmas and wanted the older 2 involved, but they said no. And it turned into a fight between them, with the middle kids texting the older ones constantly saying, "Dawn deserves better," and why are they so upset at the idea of having 2 moms, and loving both Jane and Dawn. I asked them about what their siblings normally say, and they told me their siblings claim not to care. But it's not possible. This is where the parental talk came in, and I explained that their older siblings have different experiences from them, and to believe them when they say they do not mind if they are left out. I said I understand they love Dawn and feel like defending her, but the older two probably feel the same about Jane. The kids took it badly and said Dawn deserves better, and how the older two upset her all the time when they act like she's not their mom too. When they told my brother and Dawn, both said I stepped over the line from uncle to parent, and it was not my place to have such a parental talk with the kids. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. The truth of the matter is, because your brother was so desperate to not be a single parent, he tried to force his kids to accept Dawn sooner than the older two were ready. Once they finish college and no longer financially need anything from their dad, they will probably cut all 6 of them out. Comment 2. I think all we can say is that I hope you will always be there for the oldest two, as I think they're going to need you. They are probably heartbroken over the way their mom is being airbrushed from history. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the support on my last post. I wanted to give you an update on the family drama that's been unfolding over the past few months. So, after the whole blow-up about the Christmas plans and the parental talk I had with my middle nieces and nephews, things took a turn I didn't expect. My brother and Dawn were pretty upset with me for a while, saying I overstepped my boundaries. But then, something happened that changed everything. A few weeks after our argument, my oldest nephew, who's in college, came home for a surprise visit. He had been thinking a lot about what the middle kids said, and he decided to have a heart-to-heart with Dawn. He told her that while he'll always miss his mom, Jane, he appreciates everything Dawn has done for them. It was a moment that left everyone speechless. Dawn was in tears, and my brother was so moved he could barely speak. But that wasn't the end of it. My oldest niece, who's also in college, still wasn't on board. She felt like her brother was betraying their mom's memory by getting closer to Dawn. It caused a huge rift between the siblings, and the house was like a battlefield whenever the topic came up. Meanwhile, the middle kids were caught in the crossfire. They just wanted a happy family, and they couldn't understand why their older siblings couldn't see Dawn as their mom too. They remembered how Dawn would read them bedtime stories and nurse them when they were sick, just like Jane used to do for the older kids. They couldn't grasp why their older siblings wouldn't accept her. The turning point came when my youngest niece, one of the middle kids, had a school event. She was starring in a play, and she wanted everyone to be there, including the older siblings. The older two were hesitant, but they showed up for their sister's sake. After the play, Dawn approached them and thanked them for coming. She said she knew they had their differences, but she was grateful for their support. That's when my oldest niece broke down. She admitted that she was scared of forgetting her mom, Jane, and that accepting Dawn felt like a betrayal. Dawn hugged her and told her that she never wanted to replace Jane, but she loved them all as her own. It was a raw, emotional moment that none of us expected. After that night, things started to shift. The older siblings began to include Dawn more, and the middle kids were over the moon. They started planning family dinners and outings together, trying to bridge the gap between the past and the present. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were still arguments and tears, especially when it came to family traditions that Jane had started. The older kids wanted to keep those alive, while the middle kids wanted to create new ones with Dawn. It was a delicate balancing act, and my brother was stuck in the middle, trying to honor both his late wife and his current wife. In the end, they reached a compromise. They decided to keep some of Jane's traditions, like her special pancake recipe on Sundays, but also start new ones with Dawn, like a yearly beach trip. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As for me, I've been trying to stay out of the drama and just be there for all of them. I've had my own talks with Dawn, apologizing for overstepping and explaining that I just wanted to help. She understood and thanked me for caring so much about the kids. Now, for the next story. My mom was a single mom to me until I, 28-year-old male, was 7. She then met my stepdad Joe and married him. Joe had been divorced for 3 years and had 2 kids, a 6-year-old female and a 4-year-old male at the time. Joe's relationship with his ex-wife was hostile, possibly the most hostile I have ever witnessed, even today. Joe's ex decided that she and Joe's kids should never treat my mom with respect, and she had them treating my mom like she was the other woman. I was upset for my mom at the time, and she told me they would grow up and realize what their mom had done, and they would come around, at least to the point of being civil. I think at some point, my mom saw her stepkids as a challenge she needed to win. She went out of her way to win them over, and there were many times it came at my expense. The worse they treated her, the more she focused on them and forgot she had an actual son who loved and needed her. Joe was fine, but he worked a lot, so I felt abandoned by my mom, and I felt like my mom wouldn't even notice if I was gone. When Joe's kids were teenagers, their mom died and they moved in with us permanently. Before this, they were at our house every other week. Them moving in was hell. They would yell insults at my mom on a daily basis, would tell her they wished she had died instead of their mom, and they called her a disgusting, repulsive intimacy worker who infected everyone she met. They spread a rumor around high school that mom had cheated on Joe and had infected him. Joe had his kids in therapy, he had talks with them, and issued consequences for their mistreatment of my mom. But at no point did it stop, and equally, at no point did my mom give up. When I moved out for college, it became clear to me that mom was going to stay more concerned with her stepkids than with me. She was disinterested when I introduced her to my wife. We met in college. She really didn't take much interest in our wedding planning. She was busy trying to get Joe's kids to see her, because once they moved out, they told Joe they would only see him alone. Once or twice his kids asked my mom for money, and that kept her holding on. When my wife and I had our first child, I gave up. My mom showed zero interest and didn't make any effort to meet my daughter for weeks. And when she did meet her, there was still zero interest. Joe went to his kids for Christmas this year and left my mom home. Mom sent me a text saying this, and I ignored it. 2 days ago, she left a voicemail saying I should have invited her to my house for Christmas, so she wasn't alone and could be with her son and grandchildren. I called her right back and told her she can't discard us and then expect me to invite her to Christmas. I told her she wanted to chase people who would rather see her dead and would dance on her grave than her son, who loves her, so she can frick off and leave me alone and stop trying to make us her consolation prize. Mom claimed I was cruel and out of line with how I treated her. Am I the idiot? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You have said what you needed to say, and now it is probably time to move on with your life. It does not sound like she is ever going to be who you need her to be, and it is a big loss, I am sure. If those ungrateful brats and her so-called husband had invited her to Christmas, you would never have been a consideration to her. As hard as it is, I hope you are able to let go and focus on your wife and baby. They are your family now. She does not deserve to keep using you as second best. Comment 2. Not the idiot. She was the cruel one. She also does not seem to have much sense. I can appreciate her trying to make an effort in the beginnings, but at a certain point she needed to stop trying so hard. I do not mean give up altogether, but cut her losses until they grow up and apologize. She did not, and look where it got her. Also, her husband left her and went to visit his kids where she was not invited. Instead of some self-reflection, she takes it out on her son. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, back with an update on the situation with my mom. It's been a wild 3 days since I last posted, and things have taken some unexpected turns. After I hung up on my mom, I was fuming. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to call me cruel after years of neglect. But then, late that night, I got a call from Joe. He sounded more defeated than I'd ever heard him. He told me that he had just found out something that turned everything upside down. Turns out, Joe's kids had been lying to him for years. They had told him that my mom was the one who had been spreading rumors about them, not the other way around. Joe had discovered a bunch of old emails and messages on his daughter's laptop that laid out their entire scheme. They had been manipulating him against my mom, making it seem like she was the villain in their story. I was shocked. I mean, I knew they didn't like her, but to go to such lengths? It was a betrayal that cut deep for Joe. He apologized to me for not seeing it sooner and for the way things had been. He asked if he could come over to talk in person. When Joe arrived, he looked like a man who had lost everything. He told me he had confronted his kids and they had admitted to everything. They had been angry about the divorce and their mom's death, and they took it out on my mom. They thought if they could drive her away, they could have their dad to themselves. Joe was in tears, saying he didn't know what to do. He felt like he had failed my mom and me. I didn't know what to say. I was still processing the fact that my step-siblings had been the ones causing all this pain. The next day, my mom showed up at my door. She had heard from Joe about the betrayal, and she was a mess. She said she had spent years trying to win over kids who had been actively working against her. She felt foolish and heartbroken. We sat down and had a long talk. She admitted that she had been so focused on trying to make things right with Joe's kids that she had neglected our relationship. She said she realized now that she had been chasing the affection of kids who would never love her, while ignoring the son who always had. It was a tough conversation. I told her how her actions had hurt me, how I felt like I had been pushed aside for kids who didn't even want her in their lives. She listened, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like she really heard me. We didn't solve everything in one afternoon, but it was a start. She promised to try to make things right, to be a better mom and grandmother. I was cautious, but I could see the regret in her eyes. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get any more dramatic, Joe's kids showed up. They had found out that Joe had told my mom everything, and they were furious. They started yelling, accusing my mom of turning Joe against them. It was chaos. Joe stepped in and told them that he knew the truth, that he had seen the proof of their lies. They tried to deny it, but it was clear they were caught. They left in a huff, saying they wanted nothing to do with any of us. It was a lot to take in. My mom and Joe were left reeling from the betrayal, and I was left wondering where we all went from here. But one thing was clear. My mom and I had a chance to rebuild our relationship, and that was something worth trying for. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.